The invitation arrived in my mailbox on a Thursday afternoon, nestled between a utility bill and a property tax statement for one of my Tampa rentals. Heavy cardstock, gold embossed lettering, the kind of expensive stationery my family always used to prove they had money. You are cordially invited to celebrate Richard Montgomery's 60th birthday. Black tie event. November 18th, 7 p.m. The Denver Country Club. I was about to set it aside when I noticed the handwritten note at the bottom, in my mother's distinctive script. Avery, this invitation is a courtesy. Given your continued failures and embarrassing life choices, we think it's best you don't attend. Your sister Natalie will be there with her husband. She's doing so well, VP at Morgan Stanley now. We'd hate for comparisons to be made. Mother. I read it twice, waiting for the familiar sting of rejection. It didn't come. After 34 years of being the family disappointment, I'd apparently built up immunity. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad, your mother sent you the invitation. I want to be clear, this is my birthday, and I don't want you there. Natalie is getting the estate anyway when I'm gone. The beach house, the rental properties, all of it. $5.8 million in assets going to someone who actually made something of herself. You're a failure, Avery. Always have been. Don't embarrass us by showing up. I set my phone down and stared out the window of my home office. Outside, the Colorado autumn was in full display, aspens turning gold against the mountains. My house, a modest 3-bedroom I'd bought 5 years ago, sat in a quiet neighborhood in Boulder, about 40 minutes from my parents' Cherry Creek mansion. A failure. That's what they saw when they looked at me. What they didn't see was the woman who owned 10 rental properties across Florida. The woman whose real estate portfolio was currently valued at $6.2 million. The woman who'd been quietly building wealth for the past 7 years while they dismissed her as a glorified property manager. They didn't see her because they'd never bothered to look. My laptop chimed. An email from Samantha Chen, my property manager in Tampa. Avery, Forbes magazine reached out. They're doing a feature on women under 40 building real estate empires outside traditional markets. Someone nominated you. They want to interview you next week and photograph you at the properties. Thoughts? I typed back, how did they find out about the portfolio? Her response came quickly. I may have submitted your name when they put out a call for nominations 3 months ago. You've been too humble about what you've built. Time for people to know. Forbes. A feature article. About me. I looked at Dad's text again. You're a failure, Avery. Then I looked at the Forbes email. And I smiled. The story of how I became the family failure started 20 years ago when I was 14. Natalie was 17, already planning her Ivy League trajectory. She'd scored a 1580 on her SATs, had 4 AP classes lined up, and spent every dinner detailing her path to success. Harvard or Yale, she'd announce. Then law school or business school. I'm going to be worth millions by 30. I was quiet, artistic, more interested in photography and architecture than corporate achievement. When I scored a 1320 on my SATs, still good, just not Natalie level, Mom had actually sighed at the dinner table. Well, she'd said, I suppose not everyone can be exceptional. Natalie went to Yale. I went to University of Colorado Boulder. Natalie got her MBA from Wharton. I got a degree in urban planning and real estate development. Natalie landed a job at Morgan Stanley, climbed the ladder, married a fellow VP, bought a townhouse in Manhattan. I moved to Florida right after college, worked as an assistant property manager for $32,000 a year, and lived with 3 roommates in a tiny apartment in Tampa. To my family, the comparison was clear. Natalie was the success. I was the cautionary tale. What they didn't know was that I'd moved to Florida specifically because I'd been researching real estate markets for 2 years. I'd identified Tampa, Orlando, and Miami as undervalued markets with strong rental demand and population growth. I'd studied property management, landlord-tenant law, real estate investment strategy, everything I could learn. At 23, while working that $32,000 job, I'd saved $15,000 and bought my first property, a tiny 1-bedroom condo in Tampa that needed work. I spent 6 months renovating it myself. New paint, new fixtures, refinished floors. Then I rented it out for $1,200 a month. After mortgage, insurance, and taxes, I netted about $300 monthly. It wasn't much. But it was mine. My family didn't know about it because I didn't tell them. Why would I? They'd already decided what my story was. Over the next 7 years, I replicated that process. I lived cheaply, saved aggressively, and bought properties that needed cosmetic work. I learned to do minor repairs myself. I built relationships with contractors who gave me good rates. I studied the markets obsessively, buying properties in neighborhoods that were about to improve. 1 property became 2. 2 became 4. 4 became 10. By age 30, I owned 10 rental properties across Florida worth a combined $4.2 million, with total rental income of about $14,000 monthly. I'd moved back to Colorado, hired a property management company in Tampa, and was living off the rental income while continuing to work as a real estate consultant. My family still thought I was struggling. Still thought I was the failure. Because I drove a 10-year-old Honda. Because I wore practical clothes instead of designer labels. Because I lived in Boulder instead of Cherry Creek. Because I didn't post my success on social media or brag at family dinners. I tried to tell them once, about 3 years ago at Thanksgiving. I've been building a real estate portfolio in Florida, I'd mentioned casually. 10 properties now. It's going really well. Mom had smiled that tight, polite smile. That's nice, dear. Property management is honest work. I don't manage them. I own them. Dad had laughed. Avery, you can barely afford your own house. Let's not exaggerate. Natalie had patted my hand. It's okay to dream big, sis. But maybe focus on realistic goals? Not everyone can be an investor. I'd stopped talking about it after that. But I'd kept building. Last year, I'd purchased 2 more properties, bringing my total to 12, and the portfolio value had jumped to $6.2 million. My monthly rental income was now $18,500. After all expenses, I was netting about $11,000 monthly in passive income. I was financially independent. Could retire tomorrow if I wanted to. And my family had no idea. The week after receiving Dad's birthday invitation, I had my Forbes interview. Rebecca Martinez, the journalist, met me at one of my Tampa properties, a beautifully renovated 4-unit building 3 blocks from the bay. So you started at 23 with 1 condo? Rebecca asked, her recorder running. Technically I started at 21 with research and planning. But yes, first purchase at 23. And your family? Were they investors too? Did they mentor you? I smiled carefully. My family is successful in traditional ways, corporate careers, high salaries. They didn't really understand real estate investing. But they must be proud now. I paused. They don't actually know the extent of what I've built. We're not close. Rebecca's eyebrows rose. Your family doesn't know you own a $6.2 million real estate portfolio. They know I own some rental properties. They think it's a hobby. A failure to launch into a real career. How does that feel? Honestly, freeing. I built this without their approval, their support, or their expectations. It's entirely mine. Rebecca smiled. That's a powerful story, Avery. The quiet wealth builder. The underestimated daughter who created an empire while everyone was looking the other way. The photographer, Christine, spent 2 hours capturing shots of me at various properties, reviewing documents with my property manager, meeting with tenants. Professional, capable, successful. When does the article run? I asked as we wrapped up. Next month's issue. Late November. Dad's birthday was November 18th. The magazine would hit stands around November 20th. Perfect timing. November 18th arrived cold and clear. I spent the morning reviewing property reports and approving a renovation budget for one of my Orlando units. Around 2 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Montgomery? This is Christine Wu, the photographer from Forbes. I'm calling because there's been a schedule change. The article is running in the November 15th issue, not the later one. It's already at newsstands. My heart skipped. This week. Yes. It's actually getting significant pickup. The online version went live this morning and it's trending. I wanted to give you a heads up in case people start reaching out. After we hung up, I pulled up Forbes online. There it was, featured on the homepage. The Invisible Empire: How One Woman Built $6.2 million in Real Estate While Her Family Called Her a Failure. The photo showed me standing in front of my Tampa property, arms crossed, confident smile. The subheading read, Avery Montgomery spent a decade proving nothing to her family while building everything for herself. I read through the article. Rebecca had captured everything: my early struggles, my methodical approach, my family's dismissal, my quiet determination. She'd interviewed my property manager, several of my tenants, even a real estate economics professor who praised my market timing and strategy. Near the end, there was a quote from me: "Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about building something so solid that their opinions become irrelevant." My phone started buzzing. LinkedIn messages, emails, texts from old colleagues. Everyone had seen it. Then a text from Natalie: "What the hell is this Forbes article? You told us you had a few rental properties. This says $6.2 million. I didn't respond. Another text from Mom: "Avery, we need to talk about this article. This is very embarrassing. Why would you tell a reporter these things about our family?" Still didn't respond. Then Dad: "I'm seeing an article about you online. This is clearly exaggerated. We'll discuss this after my birthday party, which you are still not invited to." I smiled at my phone, turned it to silent, and got dressed. Not in party clothes. In professional attire: tailored blazer, elegant blouse, expensive jeans, my nicest boots. I pulled my hair back, minimal makeup, diamond studs I'd bought myself after closing on my 10th property. I looked like what I was, a successful businesswoman. Then I drove to the Denver Country Club. The parking lot was full of luxury cars: Mercedes, BMWs, Teslas, a few Porsches. My Honda looked painfully out of place. Good. I walked into the club like I belonged there, because I did. I'd paid my own way in life. I'd built my own success. I had nothing to prove, but I was done being invisible. The party was in the grand ballroom. 200 guests, champagne flowing, a jazz quartet playing, Dad holding court in the center like the king he believed himself to be. I stood in the doorway, watching. Natalie spotted me first. She was across the room with her husband Brett, both of them in designer formal wear, both looking like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Her face went from surprise to anger in seconds. She started pushing through the crowd toward me. But before she reached me, someone else approached. A woman, about 45, carrying a professional camera and wearing a press badge. "Avery Montgomery?" she asked. "Yes. I'm Jennifer Park from Forbes. I'm doing a follow-up photo shoot to accompany the online article about you. Your property manager mentioned you might be in Denver this weekend, and when I saw the piece about the rental portfolio inheritance, I thought." "Wait," I interrupted. "What piece about inheritance?" Jennifer looked confused. "The angle about your family's $5.8 million estate going to your sister while you'd quietly built a larger portfolio yourself? Rebecca mentioned it in the article. The irony of it. Your father telling you you'd get nothing while you'd already built more than he could give." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's in the article. It's one of the main hooks. The family that dismissed the daughter who outperformed them all. It's getting massive social media traction. Very powerful story." Behind Jennifer, I saw Mom's face go pale. She'd clearly overheard. Natalie reached us, Brett trailing behind. "Avery, what are you doing here? Dad explicitly uninvited you." Jennifer turned, camera ready. "You must be Natalie, the sister. I'd love to get a photo of both of you together for the magazine if." "Absolutely not," Natalie snapped. "This is a private party." "Actually," I said quietly, "the party's in a semi-public venue, and Forbes has press credentials. But Jennifer, maybe we could do this somewhere less disruptive." Dad appeared, his face red. "Avery, I told you not to come." "Mr. Montgomery." Jennifer extended her hand. "Jennifer Park, Forbes. I'm here photographing your daughter for our feature on emerging real estate investors. Quite an impressive portfolio she's built. You must be very proud." The silence was deafening. Dad stared at Jennifer, then at me, then at the camera. "Feature?" "Yes, sir. The Invisible Empire. It's our cover story for the business section this month. Your daughter's real estate strategy is being used as a case study in several MBA programs now. I watched Dad's brain try to process this information. Mom arrived, champagne glass trembling in her hand. This is Richard's birthday party. This is inappropriate. I apologize, Jennifer said smoothly. I didn't mean to intrude. I was simply hoping to get a few photos of Avery in her hometown setting. The article mentions she's from Denver, and the contrast between, she paused, checking her notes, between the family that valued appearances over substance, and the daughter who built substance over appearances. It's quite compelling. We never said that, Mom protested. No, your daughter did. In the interview, she described how her family called her a failure while she was systematically building a multi-million-dollar portfolio. It's one of our most read pieces this quarter. A crowd was gathering now. Dad's wealthy friends, business associates, people who'd known our family for decades. All watching. All listening. Natalie found her voice. This is ridiculous. Avery doesn't have a multi-million-dollar anything. She drives a Honda. She lives in Boulder. She wears clothes from practical stores because I invest my money instead of spending it on status symbols, I finished. Yes, Natalie. That's called financial strategy. You're lying about this portfolio, she accused. Jennifer pulled out her iPad. Would you like to see the documentation? Property deeds, rental income statements, professional valuations? It's all verified. Forbes doesn't publish unverified financial claims. She turned the screen to show a spreadsheet. 12 properties. Purchase dates. Current values. Rental income. Total portfolio value, $6,247,000. Dad stared at the numbers. This can't be real. It's very real, sir. Your daughter started investing at 23. She now owns 12 properties across Florida with a total monthly rental income of approximately $18,500. After expenses, she nets around $11,000 monthly in passive income. She's financially independent and has been for several years. Mom sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said quietly. 3 years ago at Thanksgiving. You laughed. You told me to focus on realistic goals. You said not everyone could be an investor. But this says. Dad was reading Jennifer's iPad now. This says you bought your first property at 23. That was 11 years ago. Yes. You've been building this for 11 years and never told us. I told you I was investing in real estate. You dismissed it as property management. You called it a failure to launch. Why would I keep trying to explain something you refused to see? Natalie grabbed the iPad. Her face went white as she scrolled through the details. These properties, the Tampa building is worth $890,000. I bought it for $420,000 7 years ago. Renovated it myself. It's appreciated. You renovated a building yourself. I learned how. YouTube, books, working with contractors. I couldn't afford to hire out everything, so I learned to do what I could myself. Brett, Natalie's husband, leaned over her shoulder to look. As a fellow finance person, he understood immediately what he was seeing. Jesus Christ. Your cap rates are incredible. These are textbook value-add investments. That was the strategy, I said. Buy undervalued properties in appreciating markets, improve them, hold long-term. Your sister has been telling everyone you work as a property manager, Brett said, looking at Natalie. She does. Natalie protested. I consult on property management strategy, I corrected. For other real estate investors. Because I have expertise they need. It's a $120,000 a year job that I do remotely while my rental income covers my living expenses. Dad's face was cycling through emotions, shock, confusion, something that might have been respect, then anger. Why would you hide this from us? I didn't hide it. I lived it quietly. There's a difference. You were so convinced I was a failure that you never looked closely enough to see what I was actually building. Mom was crying now. We've been telling everyone you were struggling. That we were worried about you. I know. I've heard the stories. Poor Avery, can't seem to get her life together. Meanwhile, I've been out-owning everyone in this room who isn't a CEO. Jennifer was photographing everything now, the family's shocked faces, the iPad with the property details, the crowd of wealthy party guests watching the drama unfold. This is going to make an incredible follow-up piece, she said. The moment the family discovered the truth. This is journalistic gold. You can't publish photos from a private party, Natalie snapped. Actually, this is a semi-public venue, and the story is newsworthy. But I'm happy to get releases if people want to sign. Jennifer smiled. Though I suspect the story will run with or without the photos. Wealthy Denver family discovers daughter they called a failure actually built larger fortune than they are leaving her. That's a headline that writes itself. Dad's lawyer friend, Tom, pushed forward. Richard, is this true? Your daughter owns $6.2 million in real estate. Apparently, Dad said weakly. And you were leaving everything to Natalie. The estate is $5.8 million. Natalie is the executor and primary beneficiary. It seemed appropriate since Avery was. He trailed off. Was a failure. I supplied. Yes, that was the reasoning. The successful daughter gets the inheritance. The failure gets nothing. Tom looked at Natalie. You're getting $5.8 million and your sister already has $6.2 million in assets she built herself. Natalie's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Actually, Brett said quietly, it's worse than that. Natalie and I have about $2.1 million in combined assets. Mortgage, retirement accounts, savings. Avery has more than both of us combined. And no mortgage on most of her properties. 10 of the 12 are paid off, I confirmed. I only have mortgages on the 2 I bought last year. The room had gone completely silent. 200 guests watching a family implode. Dad's business partner, Charles, stepped forward. Avery, I'm a commercial real estate investor. I'd love to talk strategy with you sometime. Your portfolio composition is impressive. I'd be happy to, I said. Though I should warn you, I'm pretty boring. I buy properties, improve them, hold them for decades. Not very exciting. That's the smartest strategy there is, Charles said. Your father's been trying to convince me to invest in some high-risk development deals. I think I'd rather hear your approach. Dad's face went redder. Charles, those deals are risky, I said. High leverage, uncertain returns, dependent on market timing. I've seen the proposals. You showed them to me 2 years ago, remember? Asked if I wanted to invest? I said no because the risk-reward ratio was poor. You said you couldn't afford it, Dad corrected. No, I said it wasn't a good investment. You assumed I couldn't afford it because you'd already decided I had no money. Mom found her voice. What do you want from us, Avery? You show up here with a magazine photographer, humiliate us in front of everyone. I didn't bring the photographer. Forbes found me here. I came because this is my father's birthday and despite everything, I thought he might want his daughter present. I was clearly wrong. You were uninvited, Natalie said. Yes. Via a handwritten note calling me an embarrassing failure. I have it framed in my office, actually. Motivation. Jennifer was scribbling notes furiously. Dad's face shifted to something desperate. Avery, we didn't know. If we'd known about the properties. Would it have mattered? I asked. Would you have treated me differently if you'd known I had money? Because that says everything about why I didn't tell you. The silence stretched. Finally, Dad said, we could have helped you. Advised you. We have connections, resources. I didn't want your connections. I wanted your respect. I wanted you to believe I could succeed without needing you to rescue me or validate me or give me permission. I looked around the room. I built this alone because that was the only way to prove, to myself, not to you, that I was capable. Mom was fully crying now. We've been awful to you. Yes, I agreed. You have. For my entire life, you've treated me like I'm less than. But here's what I've learned. Your opinion of me was never actually about me. It was about your need to have a success story and a failure story. Natalie got to be the golden child. I got to be the cautionary tale. It was easier for you than accepting that people can succeed in different ways. That's not fair, Natalie protested. Isn't it? Tell me, Natalie, when's the last time you asked about my life? Actually asked, and listened to the answer. She opened her mouth. Closed it. You never seemed interested in talking about your work. Because every time I mentioned real estate, you changed the subject or made a joke about me being a landlord. You weren't interested in my work. You were interested in maintaining the narrative that you were the successful one. Brett put his hand on Natalie's shoulder. She shook it off. So what now? Dad asked. You've humiliated us. Made us look like fools. What do you want? Nothing, I said simply. I don't want your money, your estate, your approval, or your apology. I came tonight because you're my father and it's your birthday. But I'm realizing now that I don't need to keep trying to be part of a family that doesn't see me. Avery, Mom started. I'm going to leave now, I said. Jennifer, if you want those photos, I'll be outside. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard chaos erupting, Dad shouting, Mom crying, Natalie arguing with Brett, guests murmuring. But I kept walking. Jennifer caught up with me in the parking lot. That was intense. That was my family. Do you regret coming? I thought about it. No. I needed to see it clearly. I've spent so many years wondering if maybe I was wrong, if maybe I'd misunderstood, if maybe they'd change if I just achieved enough. But it was never about achievement. It was about control. About keeping me in the role they'd assigned me. And now I'm free. Jennifer took several photos of me leaning against my Honda, the Denver Country Club in the background. The successful daughter in her practical car, leaving behind the family that never saw her coming. This is going to be a hell of a story, Jennifer said. It already is, I replied. But it's my story now. Not theirs. The next morning, I woke to 247 unread messages. Most were congratulatory, friends, colleagues, even some childhood acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. The Forbes article was everywhere, and the photos from Dad's party were already leaked online. Someone had recorded video of the confrontation, and it was trending on Twitter. But there were also messages from my family. Natalie, we need to talk. This is out of control. Mom, please call me. We need to figure out how to handle this publicity. Dad, Avery, people are calling me asking about the article. This is affecting my business reputation. We need a unified family statement. I deleted them all. Then I opened my email. One from Jennifer, follow-up piece running next week. What happens when the underestimated daughter wins? Would love a quote about your plans moving forward. I typed back, my plans are simple. Keep building. Keep investing. Keep proving that success doesn't require anyone's permission. And most importantly, keep living a life that would make the 23-year-old version of me proud. Another email, this one from my property manager. 6 investors have reached out asking if you do consulting. Also, 3 podcast interview requests. You're officially a real estate celebrity. I smiled. Not because of the attention, but because the work I'd done quietly for 11 years was finally being seen. Not by my family, but by people who understood what it meant. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ms. Montgomery? This is Patricia Walsh. I'm the Dean of Real Estate Studies at University of Denver. I'm calling to ask if you'd consider being a guest lecturer for our real estate investment course. We'd love for our students to hear about your portfolio strategy. I'd be honored, I said. Wonderful. I should mention, I was at your father's party last night. I'm an old friend of your mother's. I've heard her talk about you for years, always with such concern, such worry about your future. I had no idea you were the same Avery Montgomery from the Forbes article until I saw you walk in. What did my mother tell you about me? That you'd struggled to find your path. That she worried you'd never be financially stable. That she wished you'd chosen a more traditional career like your sister. Patricia paused. I have to tell you, watching her face when she realized what you'd actually built, it was quite something. I imagine it was. My question is, why did you let them think you were struggling? I thought about it. I didn't let them think anything. They decided what my story was, and I stopped trying to correct them. I realized at some point that I could spend my energy proving them wrong, or I could spend it building something real. Building was more productive. That's exactly the mentality we want to teach our students. Success doesn't require an audience. After we hung up, I sat with that thought. Success doesn't require an audience. For 11 years, I'd built my empire without spectators, without cheerleaders, without people telling me I was doing well. I'd had to generate my own validation, trust my own judgment, believe in myself when no one else did. And in doing so, I'd built something they could never take away. My phone buzzed again. Brett, Natalie's husband. Avery, it's Brett. Can we talk? Off the record, just us. I hesitated, then answered. What do you want? I want to apologize. I've been complicit in how Natalie talked about you. I never questioned it, never pushed back. I just accepted the narrative that you were the struggling sister. And now I realize my wife has been competing with someone who wasn't even in the race. You weren't trying to beat her. You were just running your own marathon while she kept checking to make sure she was ahead of you. That was surprisingly insightful. What does Natalie think about all this? Honestly, she's devastated. Not because of the money, we're fine financially, but because she's realizing that her entire identity was built on being better than you, and it turns out you were never actually behind her. That's her issue to work through, not mine. I know. But Avery, she's my wife, and I love her, but I also see her clearly. She's going to struggle with this. Your parents are going to struggle. They built their world on a false premise, and now it's collapsed. Again, not my problem. No, it's not. But I wanted you to know that some of us are seeing it clearly now. What you built, and how hard it must have been to do it without support. It wasn't hard, I said. It was lonely. But lonely is better than unseen. After Brett hung up, I thought about that distinction. Hard versus lonely. The work itself hadn't been hard. I'd enjoyed it. Learning about real estate, finding properties, renovating them, building relationships with tenants. The hard part had been doing it while my family pitied me, while holidays were filled with concerned questions about my future, while I watched Natalie get praised for achievements that weren't inherently better than mine, just more visible. The lonely part was having no one to celebrate with when I closed on a property, when a renovation turned out beautifully, when my portfolio hit another milestone. No one to call when I was scared about taking on debt, or worried about a difficult tenant, or proud of how far I'd come. I'd been lonely. But I'd been free. A week later, the follow-up Forbes article ran, "The Invisible Empire Revealed." 1 year later, where is Avery Montgomery? Except it had only been a week, not a year. Jennifer had fast-tracked it because of the viral nature of the birthday party confrontation. The article detailed the party scene, the family's shock, and my response. But it also went deeper, interviewing real estate experts about my investment strategy, talking to my tenants about what kind of landlord I was, speaking with my property manager about my business approach. The consensus: I'd built something remarkable, not through luck or inheritance, but through knowledge, patience, and strategic thinking. The article ended with my quote about making 23-year-old me proud. And beneath it, Jennifer had added, "At 34, Avery Montgomery has built a $6.2 million real estate portfolio, achieved financial independence, and created a life entirely on her own terms. She did it without her family's support, approval, or even awareness." The question isn't whether she made her younger self proud. It's whether her family will ever see what they missed while they were busy calling her a failure. The article went viral. Within days, I had interview requests from podcasts, YouTube channels, business publications. Universities wanted me to speak. Investors wanted to consult with me. A publisher reached out about writing a book. But the message that mattered most came from an unexpected source. An email from my grandmother, Dad's mother, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years because the family had essentially cut her out after she'd gotten divorced and embarrassed them. "Avery, I saw the Forbes articles. I just wanted you to know I've always been proud of you. I saw what they did to you, the same thing they did to me when I didn't fit their perfect picture. You broke free. You built something real. That takes courage. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Grandma Ruth." I stared at that email for a long time. Then I called her. "Avery." She sounded older than I remembered, but happy. You called. Grandma, why didn't you tell me you understood? All those years, I thought everyone in the family thought I was a failure. I didn't know how to reach you without going through your parents. And sweetie, I learned a long time ago that some people need someone to look down on to feel good about themselves. Your father needed that. Your mother needed that. I refused to be it, so they cut me out. I always worried they'd do the same to you. They tried. But I cut myself out first. She laughed. Good for you. So tell me about these properties. I want to hear everything. We talked for 2 hours. She asked intelligent questions, understood the strategy, celebrated the victories I'd never had anyone to celebrate with. Your grandfather would have loved this, she said. He invested in real estate too, you know. That's how we built our wealth before your father decided to go into corporate law and look down on passive income. I didn't know Grandpa was an investor. Oh yes. We had rental properties in 3 states. Your father sold them all after your grandfather died, said they were too much work, and he wanted real assets like stocks and bonds. She snorted. Real assets. Those properties would be worth $15 million today if he'd kept them. Does Dad know that? I tried to tell him. He told me I didn't understand modern investing. Sound familiar? It did. Very familiar. Grandma, would you want to come visit? See my house, meet my friends, maybe fly down to Florida to see the properties. I'd love that. I'd absolutely love that. After we hung up, I felt something shift. I'd spent so long thinking I was alone that I'd stopped looking for people who might understand. But they were there, Grandma Ruth, my property manager Samantha, my tenants who'd become friends, my consulting clients who respected my expertise. I'd built a chosen family without realizing it. My phone buzzed. Mom. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Avery. Her voice was small. Can we talk? Really talk? About what? About how wrong we were. About how we failed you. About. She paused. About whether there's any way to fix this. Mom, you can't fix 34 years in one conversation. I know. But maybe we could start. I thought about Grandma Ruth, about how the family had cut her out, about how easily that could have been me. Here's the truth, Mom. I don't need you to fix this. I don't need your approval or your apology or your suddenly enlightened understanding of my success. I needed those things when I was younger. I don't anymore. So that's it? We just done? I don't know. That depends on what you actually want. If you want a relationship with the daughter you imagined, the one who needs rescuing, who validates your role as the concerned parent, who makes Natalie look good by comparison, that daughter doesn't exist. If you want a relationship with the actual me, the one who built a real estate empire while you weren't looking, the one who doesn't need your money or your connections or your guidance, that's possible. But it requires you to see me as I actually am, not as you wish I'd be. Silence. Then, I want to try. I don't know if I can do it, but I want to try. Then start by reading the Forbes article. Actually reading it. Not to figure out how it affects you or how to control the narrative, but to understand who I am. Okay. I will. And Mom? I'm having Thanksgiving at my house this year. You and Dad are welcome to come. So is Natalie. But it's at my house, on my terms, with my chosen family. You'll meet Grandma Ruth, my property manager, some of my tenants who've become friends. You'll see my life as it actually is. If that's uncomfortable for you, you don't have to come. We'll be there, she said quickly. We'll be there. After we hung up, I wasn't sure I believed her. But I'd extended the invitation. What they did with it was up to them. Thanksgiving arrived with early snow in Boulder. My house smelled like roasting turkey and homemade pies. Grandma Ruth had arrived 2 days early and had been helping me cook, sharing stories about Grandpa's real estate deals and laughing about the family dynamics we'd both escaped. Samantha flew in from Tampa with her partner. 3 of my consulting clients who'd become friends showed up. 2 of my tenants who happened to be in Colorado visiting family joined us. At 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. Mom, Dad, and Natalie stood on my porch looking uncomfortable and out of place. They were dressed like they were attending a formal dinner, while everyone inside was in jeans and sweaters. Come in, I said. They entered slowly, taking in my house, the comfortable furniture, the family photos, none of which included them, the wall where I'd framed the deed to my first property next to the Forbes cover. Grandma Ruth appeared from the kitchen. Richard. Caroline. Natalie. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Mother, Dad said stiffly. I didn't know you'd be here. Avery invited me. We've been reconnecting. Turns out we have quite a bit in common. Natalie looked around at the other guests. I thought this was a family dinner. It is, I said. This is my family. My chosen family. You're welcome to join us, but you don't get to define what family means in my house. Samantha approached, extending her hand. You must be Avery's sister. I'm Samantha, her property manager. I've heard so much about you. Natalie shook her hand warily. Good things, I hope. Honest things, Samantha said with a smile. Avery doesn't sugarcoat. One of my tenants, Mrs. Rodriguez, gave Mom a hug. You must be so proud of your daughter. She's the best landlord I've ever had. When my husband lost his job, she worked with us on rent until he found another one. She could have evicted us, but she said families help families. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Dinner was awkward at first. My parents sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the casual atmosphere. But as the meal progressed, something shifted. Dad ended up in a long conversation with Samantha about property management software. Natalie reluctantly admitted to one of my consulting clients that she wished she'd invested in real estate years ago. Mom sat with Grandma Ruth, and I overheard fragments of conversation about regrets and second chances. After dinner, as people moved to the living room for pie, Dad pulled me aside. Your house is lovely. Your friends are kind. Your life is. He paused. It's real. It's genuine. It's nothing like what I imagined. What did you imagine? I don't know. Struggle. Sadness. Someone who needed rescuing. He looked at me directly for maybe the first time in years. I was wrong about you. Completely wrong. And I'm sorry. What changed? The Forbes article. No. Well, yes, that got my attention. But this, he gestured around the room, this is what changed my mind. You built a life. A real life. With people who care about you, who respect you, who see you. We never saw you. No, I agreed. You didn't. Can I ask you something? Why did you keep trying? Why did you keep coming to family events, keep reaching out, keep trying to include us when we'd made it clear we didn't value you? I thought about it. Because I kept hoping you'd change. That something would click and you'd finally see me. But I realize now that I wasn't trying to change your minds. I was trying to prove to myself that I was worth seeing. And I've done that. I don't need you to validate it anymore. So where does that leave us? I don't know, Dad. That's up to you. I'm not going to keep begging for crumbs of acceptance. But if you want a real relationship, one where you see me as an equal, where you respect my choices even when they are different from yours, where you don't need me to fail to feel good about yourselves, I'm open to that. I want that, he said. I really do. Then show me. Not with words, but with actions. Show up for my life as it actually is, not as you wish it would be. Later, as people were leaving, Natalie approached me in the kitchen. I owe you an apology, she said. For what specifically? There's a lot to choose from. She winced. Fair. For all of it, but especially for making my success dependent on your failure. Brett pointed out that I've spent our entire marriage talking about how much better I was doing than you. It's not a good look. No, it's not. The thing is, I think I needed you to be failing because it made my success feel more meaningful. If you could succeed too, then what I'd achieved wasn't as special. Natalie, you're a VP at Morgan Stanley. You went to Yale and Wharton. You have a beautiful life. None of that becomes less meaningful because I also succeeded. We're not in competition unless you make us competitors. I know. I've been thinking about it, and I don't know how to be your sister without that dynamic. Then maybe we need to figure that out. Build something new instead of trying to fix something that was broken from the start. She nodded slowly. I'd like that. If you're willing. I'm willing to try. But Natalie, I need you to understand something. I don't need you. I don't need your approval or your friendship or your validation. I've built a life I love without any of that. So if we're going to have a relationship, it has to be because we both want it, not because family obligation requires it. I want it, she said. I think I've wanted it for a long time, but I didn't know how to get past all the stuff. The stuff where you treated me like I was worthless. Yeah. That stuff. Despite everything, I smiled. Okay. Let's try. 6 months later, I stood in front of a class of 80 students at University of Denver. Real estate investing isn't about getting rich quick, I told them. It's about patient, strategic wealth building. It's about doing the work when no one's watching, making smart decisions when no one's applauding, and staying the course when people tell you you're wasting your time. A student raised her hand. But what about when people don't believe in you? How do you stay motivated? You find your own validation, I said. You set goals that matter to you, not to them. You measure success by your own standards. And most importantly, you remember that other people's opinions are just that, opinions. They are not facts. They are not predictions. They are just reflections of their own limitations. After class, Patricia Walsh, the dean, approached me. That was excellent. The students were engaged, the content was solid, and your personal story adds real weight to the lessons. Thank you. I enjoy teaching. Would like to offer you a part-time faculty position. Teach 1 class per semester. What do you think? I thought about 23-year-old me, buying that first condo with $15,000 and a dream. I thought about all the years of quiet work, lonely victories, unseen progress. And I thought about standing here now, being offered a position teaching others what I'd learned. I think I'd love that, I said. That evening, I had dinner with Mom and Dad. We met at a casual restaurant in Boulder, not Cherry Creek, not anywhere fancy. Just a normal dinner at a normal place. We sold the Cherry Creek house, Dad said. Moving to something smaller. I looked up, surprised. Why? Because it was too big, too expensive, and too much about impressing people we don't actually like, Mom said. We're downsizing. Using the equity to fund our retirement properly instead of maintaining appearances. That's a big change. Your Forbes article made us reevaluate a lot of things, Dad said. We've been living in a way that prioritized status over substance. Turns out our daughter had the right idea all along. I wouldn't say that. We just have different values. No, Mom said. You had better values. We're learning that now. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Dad asked, how are the properties doing? Really well. I just closed on number 13, a small apartment building in Orlando. 6 units, great location, needs some cosmetic work. Do you still do the renovations yourself? Some of them. The work I enjoy and can handle. The rest I hire out. I've gotten better at delegating. Mom smiled. Your grandmother tells me you two have been traveling together. We went to Tampa last month to tour the properties. She gave me some great advice based on what she and Grandpa did. I should have kept those properties, Dad said quietly. Mother tried to tell me, but I thought I knew better. You made the choice that felt right at the time. That's all anyone can do. When did you get so wise? He asked. When I stopped waiting for you to tell me I was. The truth of that hung in the air. We're proud of you, Mom said. I know we should have said it years ago, but we're saying it now. We're proud of what you built, how you built it, and who you've become. Thank you, I said. And meant it. Not because I needed their pride, but because I'd finally reached a place where I could accept it without it defining me. Later, driving home through Boulder's quiet streets, I thought about the journey from that first $15,000 investment to where I was now. 13 properties, $7.1 million in assets, financial independence, a teaching position, a book deal in progress, and a family that was slowly learning to see me. But more than any of that, I had something more valuable. I knew who I was. I knew my worth. And I knew it had nothing to do with anyone else's perception of me. Success doesn't require an audience. But it's nice when the right people finally show up to watch. I pulled into my driveway, looked at my modest house that I owned free and clear, and smiled. 23-year-old me would be proud. 34-year-old me was free. And that was all the success I needed. The book launched to surprising success, The Invisible Empire, Building Wealth Without Permission. It became a bestseller in the real estate and personal finance categories. My family came to the launch party. All of them. Natalie brought Brett and their new baby, my nephew, who I'd met when he was 2 days old. We'd had lunch every month for the past year, slowly building a relationship based on who we actually were instead of who we'd been assigned to be. Mom and Dad had bought a condo in Boulder to be closer. We had dinner every other week. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Grandma Ruth stood beside me at the signing table, telling anyone who'd listen about her granddaughter, the real estate mogul. But the moment that mattered most came at the end of the night. A young woman, maybe 24, approached me nervously. "Ms. Montgomery? I just wanted to say thank you. I'm in my family's version of your story right now. They think I'm wasting my time trying to start a business. Your book made me realize I don't need their permission." I signed her book, Build It Anyway. They'll see it eventually. But even if they don't, you'll know. Avery. She read it and smiled through tears. "Thank you." After she left, I stood there thinking about all the invisible empire builders out there. The ones doing the work without applause. The ones staying the course without cheerleaders. The ones building something real while everyone else is busy looking elsewhere. This book was for them. This life was for me. And that made all the difference.